Hi, I'm Amrit.
Hi, I'm Kulvinder. So in today's vlog we will be talking about the interfaith marriage, which is basically where a Sikh wants to marry a non-Sikh and partake in the Anand Garage, which is a Sikh wedding ceremony. There's been an ongoing issue whether this should be allowed to take part. So Amrit, when did you first hear about this?
Okay, so I first heard about this when I was listening to BBC Asian Network, and it was like a snippet of the actual interview with, I think it was BBC presenter Nihal, who was talking to a member of the Sikh committee, talking about if a non-Sikh wants to have an Anand Garage, should they convert?
Oh right, okay.
Even though, and then his argument was that even though Sikhis against converting people, so by adding Kaur Singh on, are you not forcing people to convert, and is that not against Sikhi itself?
Yeah.
And for some reason, I took it with a pinch of salt because I initially thought it was just his personal opinion, and then it was only up until last year I noticed this whole issue escalating, and when it kind of blew up on social media, that's when I thought, okay, this is
a problem.
This is a problem because if it's not going to affect me, it's going to affect people I know, or the future generation, and it also concerned me just because of the negative attention it was gathering, and that was an issue for me as well.
I actually heard about it not long ago. I was in the Gurdwara with my mom around 3 months ago, and we were sitting in the Langar hall downstairs, and I started hearing a lot of shouting, and I was like, okay, what is this? I turn around, and there were a group of people pushing and shoving each other. It was getting very rowdy all of a sudden. Like 1 minute there was nothing there. When I turned my back, there was so many people. There was pushing and shoving going on. People were yelling, and I was thinking, this is a Gurdwara. This is a place of worship. This shouldn't be happening. What on earth is going on?
Right.
So my mum actually asked one of the ladies sitting next to us, what's going on? And she pointed out that a Jat girl, a Sikh girl, wants to marry a Hindu, and I was like, oh okay. And she actually mentioned that the Gurdwara has allowed this marriage.
Okay.
So they've done their fere, they've done, gone around the lama and everything, so they've got married.
Okay.
And yet they're still kicking off downstairs. And I did actually hear someone from the Gurdwara committee, actually he said, these are his words, if we allow one marriage like this to happen, they're going to be queuing up every Sunday. And I thought, well, this isn't right, and it didn't make me feel good. I just thought, it's bringing such a bad light to our religion. This isn't what our religion's about.
Yeah.
Fighting in the Gurdwara, come on, it's meant to be a place where people can go and relax and, kind of pray and feel safe. Not where people are actually scared to go in. I mean, there were police there, Amrit. There was literally a van parked outside, and so many policemen came in trying to stop this fight, but they couldn't do anything about it because they probably felt a bit out of place.
Yeah.
And so that's when I first heard about it, until it blew up on social media, like you said. This has actually been documented by British journalist Sunny Hundal, who first wrote about this in 2012.
Yeah.
When the issue began to escalate, it was public figures such as Sunny Hundal who brought this attention to light, with his Facebook posts going viral. So we have spoken to Sunny from LA about the attention his post received. Here's our chat with Sunny featuring Mandeep, who is also very passionate about this topic and who had some questions to ask Sunny.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get started by asking you, when did you first hear about this whole interfaith marriage issue?
I heard about it about 2 years ago, in fact, and I wrote a shorter piece just on my personal Facebook wall. I was shocked at how little coverage and discussion there was of this issue, even among Sikhs. No one was really mentioning it, no one was really criticizing it. And so firstly, I wanted to do that to raise awareness and say, actually, I don't care if you think that these people are just enforcing the religion. On one level, it's just basically wrong to wreck someone's happiness. Whatever disagreements you have, you try and deal with them in different ways.
We know that obviously not everyone was supportive of what you've been writing. So what criticism did you face?
So the backlash I got was mostly to do with my use of language. And I said, no, we should call these people what we would normally. Just because they're Sikhs doesn't mean that you should let them off the hook. Um, my issue was not having. My issue was never about having a theological debate. It was saying you are simply wrong to act like intimidating thugs and wreck someone's big day. But I just think it's irrelevant to do with the religion. If that was someone else in a different community, these people would use the same language.
With the backlash that you get, is there something that you think I should have gone a different way about it?
I'm not sure if I would have taken a different approach. Partly because sometimes you just, the best approach is to just say what's coming to you. Like you've written out the article very quickly because you're passionate about an issue, and then it goes unexpectedly viral. So that's happened to me a few times where I don't really haven't really put that much thought into correcting or thinking about the implications of an article. I'll just write it.
But recently, you shared, everyone saw about the post that the committee got together and spoke about what's going to happen with the Interfaith. How do you think the response will be from Sikhs? Like, do you think they'll be happy with this?
I suspect most Sikhs will breathe a sigh of relief because they'll think, okay, maybe these protests will stop and stop us looking bad. I would venture that most Sikhs don't want these protests to have. There's a small minority who are happy to, keep these protests going and disrupt things. The Sikh Council, they had these guidelines. They were saying, we have found this way to stop these protests from happening. Now, what's interesting is not only have some Gurdwaras ignored the Sikh Council and let the weddings carry on, but also some people followed the Sikh Council guidelines but were nevertheless disrupted anyway. And I think the Sikh Council had this emergency meeting saying that we found a solution, but actually they've tried. They had the same meeting about a year ago, putting out the same stuff, and people ignored them. So. I think the same will happen again, but we'll have to see.
If I understand that the meeting was closed, but if you had an invite and were you able to attend, what would have been your proposal?
Good question. Okay, there's several ways to do this. One, right, you should have a discussion about the Rehit Maryada and say that maybe we need to update it. The other option is to actually say that the Anand Karaj is only valid for Khalsa Sikhs, and everyone else should have a different religious ceremony. So and that to me is less hypocritical and still keeping in with Rehit Maryada. But if you really want to be ritualistic about it, if you really want to be about rules. Then I think that you should have one rule for Khalsa and then another rule for all other Sikhs and non-Sikhs.
From what I know, it is only actually Britain that this is so controversial.
Absolutely. Yes, you're firstly right. This is a controversy only in Britain. It's not a controversy in the US or Canada or even in India. A bit of a mixed bag. I wouldn't say that there's a uniform view on this. Same in the UK. I mean, most messages I've had are from British Sikhs, and they have been overwhelmingly in my support. So I don't think that American Sikhs or Canadian Sikhs are much more different in their views than British Sikhs. It's just British Sikhs who seem to be taking this issue, seriously. So there's been four kinds of Sikhs who've been in touch with me. There's the Sikhs who are not really that religious, who are fairly liberal. These people are thugs, Then there's religious Sikhs, Amritari Sikhs, who've also been in touch with me to say, I agree with you, I just don't want to say in public, but this is wrong. We should be inclusive, we should be welcoming, etc., etc. Then there are religious Sikhs who are clearly opposed and think that the Rehit Maryada should be enforced. And then there is the kind of non-practicing guilty Sikhs, as I call them, people who feel really guilty that they're not practicing their religion and therefore want to ensure that other people are forced to, practice it. And I suspect there's a lot of them in Canada and the US as well. But certainly there's a lot of them in the UK by the looks of it.
This extremism is just manifested in so many different ways, and in young modern Sikh men. Why do you think that is?
On this, so I think this is very much to do with identity.
Mm-hmm.
So what we've got is young Sikhs who are in the UK, and they don't really feel that British, or at least they don't really know what that means, and they don't really engage with mainstream culture. So they get involved in religion a little bit, and that becomes their primary form of identity. But then what happens is there is a form of guilt involved, but I think that they're less, our parents' generation was much more willing to be flexible because they'd come to a different country. They wanted to fit in, they wanted to get on with their lives and focus on the economics. Now you've got a young generation who isn't sure about their own identity, firstly, which is, it's a hybrid of identities. I'm not saying this applies to everyone, but there certainly are debates amongst second generation, third generation of Sikhs about identity, about what kind of identity do we have. So actually what's going on with the Sikhs is not very different to what's been happening with Muslims as well. With a lot of the younger Muslims, I mean, there were older Muslims who became radicalized around the time of Salman Rushdie because they felt that was an attack on their faith, and there were other controversies as well. But really, it's the younger Muslims who were pushing for a more purer version, as they saw it, of their religion, and really trying to enforce the mosques to do things in a certain way and become much more puritanical, trying to take over mosques, trying to go around on demonstrations, get fired up about the independent Muslim homeland. They go around, shouting. Still going on, by the way. Do you hear me still?
I think it cut out when you were saying that the irony of the Sikh fundamentalist is that.
Okay.
The irony is that the Muslim fundamentalists that they hate. The irony is that they're actually mirror copies of them, and then after that it cut out.
Okay. But I want to clarify that point. I'm not saying that they are like the Taliban, yes. But I am saying that pre the Taliban, there were a bunch of really zealous, and they still are around, Muslims in the UK who went around trying to force women to wear hijabs, trying to convert people over to Islam, to a sort of a more pure version of Islam, telling everyone that they're heretics for not following the religion properly. The same stuff was going on in the UK. And that's why I make the point about Taliban, because many of these people went on to join the Taliban. And so we have to worry about these people sort of getting a bit more radicalized and saying, actually, why aren't we fighting literally with arms for an independent Sikh faith and going over to Punjab and doing the sort of the Khalistani separatism that was around in the 80s and the 70s. So, yes, there is a mirror image, and it's a lot to do with identity. It's second generation. I'm not surprised, actually, that most of these people are young, because they don't feel like they have to fit into the UK. That identity is already sort of, to a certain extent, set. They feel comfortable in the UK, but they're more focused now on the religious side, and they're very zealous about it. And they want to make sure, more importantly, they want to make sure everyone else is also doing things that they're doing. The gender angle on this is really important, because not only are most of these protests dominated by men, but when I raised the point about the murder of Sikh girls and Sikh women in Punjab, they don't want to talk about it. And you can see it because they don't raise the issue either in their campaigning. They don't mention these issues. They don't have self-reflection about what's going on in our communities and what do we need to do to stop it. And when I raise them, for example, I raised the point about the actual Sikh council meeting being dominated by men. Women were like a tenth of the number of men. They accuse me of negativity and they say, oh, why aren't you trying to improve things? I'm like, I am trying to improve things. I'm trying to point out that A, you're only raising issues which are dominated by men. You're not raising issues which affect women. And B, you don't even try and be equal in representation.
Yeah.
And then when someone points that out, you get really defensive and critical of that person rather than saying, okay, actually, we should have done more. So the point I'm trying to make is a bit more long term, which is that this is not just about the radicalism side, which is that yes, if we do allow this sort of a normalization of violence, then it will escalate and it will get worse and it will inevitably lead to people being silenced, mostly women, from speaking out. But I also think that it will create a clash and a split within the Sikh community.
Thanks again to Sunny for taking his time to chat with us. Next week we do want to continue this discussion and talk to people who are against interfaith marriage, so we will be talking about that next week.
Yeah, and then in the weeks to come we'll also be talking about feminism and the Punjabi culture and other prominent issues.
Just before we leave, I just wanted to say to anybody who disagrees with anything that we've said, or who has a different point of view on this, we'd love to hear what you have to say.
Definitely.
So please feel free to comment in the section below, and just explain why you think
This is wrong.
why, if it's wrong, then why, and we would love to read them and get back to them in the next vlog.
That's great.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.